Oh.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to another sensational session of Strike a Chord Live podcast with my dear brother, Collin Harbour. He's right there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Marcus Ellis. I'm here in Pensacola, Florida. Collin, why don't you tell him who we are?
We are two lifelong friends with a love of baseball, music, motivation, and inspiration mixed with a little bit of nostalgia, culture, transformation, and fun. And we want you to take the journey with us.
This is Strike a Chord Live podcast. Good morning, everybody. What's happening? I don't know if it sounded like that. When I watched the replay guides, it didn't sound like that, but it was the warbling merry-go-round, Collin, and your voice was like 2 octaves lower.
Yeah, it didn't sound like that to me. It didn't sound like that to me.
Yeah,
I actually want to re-record that thing. I want to do it with a little bit more excitement or something. I think that was done late at night.
You got to come up to my level, bro.
I don't think I really felt or knew the full impact of how that would be used worldwide on the podcast.
That's right. Well, good morning, everybody. Today is May 17th, 2023. We have a super incredible session for you today. We've got our dear brother, Bruce Pulver, here with us, the pulverizer. Man, it's going to be a big week on Strike a Chord today, this week, Collin. So, man, thank you, Bruce, for being here. How are you doing up there in ATL?
Great. Great to be here with you guys. And Marcus, thank you for being on my podcast. Can I have a word with you that just dropped? So thanks for unpacking your word. And man, I hope everybody will check that out and give you a thumbs up as well.
Yeah, I got busted last night watching myself on your, are you watching yourself? I was like, yeah, I got to see how I did, got to critique myself. But no, thank you. It was truly an honor, Bruce, and let's do it again. And thank you for returning the favor and coming here. And my dear sister, Ricky McWilliams, I love you, sister, praying for you. And she says that white tie hat, this is not mine. I stole it from my wife. And the cool thing about it is, just like Bruce's, it's got a curved bill. When did the kids start wearing their bills like this? I don't know.
I kind of like that look. Again, when I wear my hat, since I'm bald, I try to wear as many hats as possible. But when I wear one like this, if you put it to the side a little bit, it's like you're a playa or something. You got your hat to the side, you're walking out, people are looking at you. More people give you fives and bro hugs when you have your hat to the side a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, the functionality is that it's supposed to block the sun, right? So as a baseball player, I like to have it curved because, science. But good morning, Summer Star. I love you. I see you. Now, to make it shareable, it should be shareable. I don't know why it's not shareable on Facebook, but it should. But we love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for pulling up in Tuesday Morning Testimony yesterday and contributing. Good morning, Peggy Gossman. And then I'm just going to say the Facebook user, I'm just going to say it's Ryan Gallagher. I just don't know. Good morning. We love you. But Bruce, we're so grateful to have you here today. And I immediately thought of you when the download came for this topic. It came about 8:30 p.m. last night because, we operate like a Swiss watch. We are like completely planned out. We do everything, but compassionate leadership came to me last night and I immediately thought of Bruce Pulver. So thank you for being here. Collin, how's it going in DFW today?
Man, it's going great. We've got soccer tonight. We've got 8 more days of school left. We've got camp right around the corner, all kinds of stuff.
I also thought of you when I thought about this, and this is not a negative. I was talking to somebody about this in public yesterday, but the way Collin and I were coached in baseball and football when we were kids is now 100% illegal.
I think it was definitely different. I'll tell you though, these club soccer coaches and club volleyball coaches are pretty intense too sometimes. I mean, it can get even at the under 2011 under 12 level, and then for my older daughter when she was doing club volleyball, it can get pretty sketchy sometimes if they do something wrong.
Now, and then also, Bruce, have you ever seen the movie Whiplash? The drummer?
Gosh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not my time.
Right.
So you do know the difference, Bruce.
Yeah, you do. Are you Russian or Dragon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So Colin, we lived through the soccer and volleyball things too, and our youngest just graduated from University of Georgia, and so we went through the whole club thing, and she had the opportunity to play there, and you're right, man, it's a tough deal to really you know continue to parent the way you want to, but also give your kids the opportunity to see what discipline and hard work and teamwork and commitment and all that's about. It's a real challenge, and maybe that's a really good way to start the topic about leadership, because those coaches and the assistant coaches and the club directors and parents, we all kind of have to work together in a community, and man, it can be hard.
It can be hard, and leadership can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And what we're talking about today is compassionate leadership, right? Which is
Right.
a certain component or a certain style of leadership.
Well, in my previous position where I was, I inherited the national sales manager position for a retail store. And man, when I first got into that job, when I was a salesman and not the manager, it was like iron fist, my way or the highway, my way or the highway, right? And unfortunately, I found myself, when I got into that position, I started running the department that way. And somebody pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you got to love on these guys. You got to love on these people." And ruling Bruce with an iron fist, really, we don't want to operate out of a fear-based leadership. Let's talk about the pros and cons of first of all, ruling negatively, harshly, and then let's take it into compassionate leadership.
Yeah. So, I mean, just some thoughts about that, right? I mean, everybody's either been a leader, been around a leader, had a leader, seen a leader, that it's been, oh my gosh, not this meeting, right? Not this forecast, not this QBR, quarterly business review. Oh my gosh, it's not gonna end well. You're up stressing out about preparation. Obviously, you need to know from a sales perspective, you need to know your territory, you need to know your products, your prospects, your pipeline, all that kind of stuff. But those can be very demotivating, right? They can make you run, right? You're there. It's sort of like, a pet, right? A dog that you treat with compassion, like we're going to talk about, or how you care for them, versus one that you've seen that has been harshly disciplined. You can just tell in their demeanor and how they are, whether they're skittish or whether they're loving, right? And it all comes from, I think, the heart.
It really does. Go ahead, Collin.
Yeah, well, I was going to do a little confessional this morning. My business partner recently told me, when we were in a car on a drive, so I couldn't leave the conversation,
Oh, I love
that
that.
I need to work on my leadership. And I think he might have been saying, "Collin, you're not being a compassionate leader."
Mm.
And I told him I'll take it into consideration. So I'm glad we're covering this topic today.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so Michael Huey's here. I love you, bro. Good to see you. And he said, "My friend Kevin's son just got a full volleyball scholarship to Ohio State, and I just spoke about this topic." So that's great. Well, so Bruce, you've been a leader in many businesses before, of departments and sales teams and things like that. How did you approach it initially, and did you learn anything along the way about how to be more compassionate, more loving to the people that work for you?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. And when you kind of look at the word compassion, the first part of it is compass. So how do you want to lead? How do you want to direct the ship, right?
Yeah,
And what is your compass? And I think folks are just kind of wired the way, either that they have been led in the past, where it
exactly.
produced the results that either they felt good about being in that setting. And you got to kind of be, I think, to be a compassionate leader, you got to meet that person kind of where they are. And everyone's going to be a little bit different. Obviously, the goals are the same. Obviously, it's reaching the targets and what the objectives are, but how you help someone get there, I think, is that compass aspect. And then the second half of the word is passion. So
Ooh,
you've got to bring your sense of how you help people get there. And I think it's, I mean, I don't know, from a sales perspective, it's like, getting a deal done. How do you go about doing it? What's your mindset? Are you transactional or are you relational? And both of those work depending on the type of organization you're running. my experience has been my sales cycles were very long. I mean, they could be anywhere from, 6 months to 3 years.
Ooh.
And you kind of have to have that aspect of, your client's timing, but still reaching the goals and objectives of your company. So it's a real difficult balance, both as someone being led by a leader, but also in that leadership role, how you help folks kind of become the best they can be.
Mm.
And there's also the aspect of always observing the role they're in, right? Someone, I'll never forget this. I was in a position once and someone said to me, "Isn't it difficult to be a fish and to be asked to climb a tree?" Right? And
Yeah.
I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you have to look at the characteristics of a person in a position, and does the need of the role fit the person in the role?" And I think that involves compassion as well as stepping back and saying, is this the right person in the right role? How can I help them be the best they can be? And if it isn't, let's find a place where they can be. And sometimes that unfortunately is exiting the company, or other things kind of have to happen. But I do believe there's compassion on both sides of that.
Amen. Amen. Well, we've done sessions before on you never know what somebody's going through in life, right? You never know what is going on in somebody's life when they show up for work. They could have a sick child. They could have a parent on their way to passing. They could be having relationships problems with their spouse. And a lot of people are really, really, really good at hiding that.
Yeah.
And then if you come in there and browbeat somebody down, what's going to happen? They're going to be unproductive. I mean, they could be having the best day of their life and you can come down and beat them down and they will be unproductive, right? So we have to be conscious of how we treat people, not only in business, but in life, especially our spouses. There was that old song, and I think it was the 20s or 30s. You always hurt, it was Spike Jones, hurt the ones you love. When we're close to somebody and we get close to somebody in business, then the gloves kind of come off. Why is that? We have to be so conscious about how we affect people in our day-to-day business and life, because if we push them down, it's not going to serve you. It's going to be unproductive and the business fails.
Yeah. And a couple of words that come to
Collin?
mind when we talk about compassionate leadership, or a couple of words that come to mind to me, are kindness and empathy. Right. And so those of us with younger children, and maybe not even younger children, it's almost like we're losing the art of being kind, or with social media, with all of these things, everybody wants to be right, or everybody wants their point to be right. And people are passionate about it, right? And in that process, it is taking away a lot of the kindness and empathy. And I wonder if we're losing the art of being a compassionate leader.
Yeah. So just thinking through that kindness and empathy, but then there's also that flip side, right? That says we can't make it so easy for everyone. We can't
Right.
completely pave the path, because where are the lessons learned in the difficult times? This isn't my phrase, but I heard it recently. Tough times make tough people, right? Soft times make soft people. Soft people make tough times, and it's that balance. It's like, go back to the soccer field. That corrective action is important to take in that moment. How you take that corrective action is where the learning either happens, or, like you said, I believe, Marcus, that beat down can happen. And I just remember with our daughter playing soccer, it was tough sometimes. It was really tough when the ball got behind the defender, and it was the defender didn't step or whatever they weren't supposed to do, that they'd worked all week on practice, and then they're down 1-0, and then how does that coach handle that? And then how does that player take that? Because you can't completely unpack or erase the emotion of the moment, because we're all human. So I think there's a lesson in receiving leadership feedback, as well as there is having a compassionate way to deliver it. I mean, sometimes it's going to be tough, man. Sometimes it's going to be, you're not making a number, we got to do something.
Sure.
And you go, "Ooh." and I think receiving that is important because you can learn how you like to receive feedback, which is going to teach you how you give it. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that really struck a chord with me, Bruce, because there's an example of when I was a sales manager and I didn't hit my number for the quarter, but I grew that quarter 20% above the previous year. Were there any accolades for the 20% of growth over the last year? Absolutely not. It was just a beatdown that I didn't hit my number. And I'm just like, bro, what gives? I mean, I worked hard. We did this. We grew the department. But because we didn't hit that unachievable number, then I wasn't doing a good job.
Yeah.
You have to be so careful of that in any aspect, but especially in business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'll add one other comment to that. And when we're doing a lot of workshops now with leadership and with teams, because that's so important, right, folks? The whole retention aspect. How can we gel as a team? We're doing a lot of that in the workshops I'm doing. And words just have perspective. I mean, Marcus, what you might say to me and what I hear you saying, it's all going to come from the frame of reference I have as the receiver.
Absolutely.
And, there's these crazy words out there, like the word bound could mean restricted. Like, you're just bound. I'm bound. There's nothing I can do. Or you can say I'm bound and determined. So how people say things are so different. So it takes, I think, a compassionate leader also really works on a clear communication. Like, I want to make sure that I understand and you understand what I'm saying, and that I understand how I'm communicating. And that's just a whole nother aspect of how we work on the perspective of words and the perspective of how we're laying something down. We don't always have the time because we're in that emotional state sometimes, but I would say let's press the pause button when we can and say, I've got to deliver a difficult message. Or even if it's a praise message, right? Even if it's a well done message, you certainly want to have, and here's how we can grow that even more, or here's how we could even turn that into a better defensive play. You swept that out. It was a panic move. They didn't score. Back to the soccer analogy, right? So next time, let's make sure our line is moving more as a unit of four, whatever the coaching thing would be in that soccer world.
Man, that's so good. Collin, do you have a comment on that? I don't want to steal.
No. Go ahead.
Well, you brought to mind something, Bruce, to me that I remember when I was playing baseball. And it was the 1985 state tournament in Tallahassee. And I believe there was two men on. There was second and third, and I was up to bat, and I hit a bomb. I mean, if we bat flipped back then, I would have bat flipped and been watching this ball, right? I thought it was gone, and it was all the way to the warning track at the wall, and the guy caught the ball, and the runner on third, who was Ronnie Hardy, God bless his soul, God rest his soul, he tagged up and scored. And I came around, I was like, yeah, we scored a run or whatever. And I felt so good because the coach called me out after the game. And he said, look, man, Marcus almost hit a 3-run dinger. And instead of being upset that the guy caught it, he was happy that we scored a run. Yeah. Right? So we have to, like Bruce, you talk about those incremental achievements, incremental steps. We have to congratulate people on those incremental wins or we never win. Right? I mean, I didn't hit that number that quarter, but it sure would have been nice to say, man, great job. You grew the department by 20% over last year's quarter. Right? But there was none of that. So I really appreciate what you say there. And it goes back to the whole thing of we attract more flies or bees with honey, right? Rather than with salt. If we're constantly beating people down, we're not going to achieve the goals that we're striving for in our team, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? You just gave two examples. The energy that you just shared about that message when you were 15 years old, I'm guessing a year.
I was 12.
So different, so much memory. Like, how many years ago was that? We don't have to do the math. Versus the energy that you said, whoa, man, I did the best I could. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So the fact that you remembered the 12-year-old reinforcement, just goes to show how much a positive set of reinforcement, even if it's in a difficult time, you made an out.
Right. Yeah.
It can last forever.
Bruce, what he's really doing there is reminding me that the previous year, 1984, when I was in the state championship tournament at home, that we lost the championship game and I made the last out,
I
and
remember
nobody said, "Hey, at least you hit it hard,"
he
right?
did hit it hard.
That's what he's reminding. That's we do this from time to time. He likes to,
Do you know what's
take the
crazy about
dagger and stick it in my side.
what's crazy about that? As I remember the silver bleachers we were sitting on the third base side. I remember watching Collin. I was sitting with Shannon Smith. I remember watching Collin make that out, and I felt so bad for him. God, but we did. There was redemption. Bill Bond came back. We won the state championship the next year. We beat our rivals Tallahassee.
And I
Mike
think
Martin,
that's
the
who we
former,
might have lost. We might have lost to
was.
Tallahassee. We either lost to Jacksonville North or Tallahassee. I can't remember.
No, it was Tallahassee,
Yeah.
and Mike Martin Jr. was on that team,
Yeah.
who was the former coach of FSU. His dad was a coach.
So
I
I'm
digress.
sorry, but I know that's what he was doing there, trying to weave in a story about compassionate leaders, reminding Collin that he sucks, whatever. All right.
I tell you what, I never know what landmines I'm going to step on when you guys invite me to guest on this show, but hopefully there's no casualties and we're all okay.
Well, let's talk about our people. You know, if let's take it from a servant leadership aspect. What's the difference? You know, Bruce, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you think the difference is between compassionate leadership versus servant leadership? You know, how do we combine both? How do we put that into our day-to-day business?
Well, yeah, there's so many different slices of leadership, and there's probably such a hybrid that it's sort of a goulash of leadership. For me, seeing a servant leader is someone who steps in and does more as a leader than I won't say the followers, but those that are under his leadership expect them to do.
Right.
And not necessarily getting the job done for them, but saying, hey, we've got a tough thing we got to get done here. I'll go first.
Boom.
I think that's it. I think it's a servant leader goes first, kind of steps in, gives someone a framework, but also has done the work, says this is the way I'd approach it. And then there's always the give before you get, right? And that's a big aspect of it, not asking for something before, you're seen doing something that brings value.
Yes. Yes. Leading by example, Collin.
Yes, absolutely. On the servant leadership side, right?
Yeah. I mean, let's take it from, if we're talking so much sports, and I love sports and music, as we know, well, that's why the three of us get along so well. We're coaches. We're coaches in that aspect, as we're leaders. So how we treat our teammates, how we treat our team determines the outcome. And I know Bruce and I know Collin, you guys have been micromanaged in a position before, like micromanaged to death. And we have to be so conscious of that to once we hand the keys over to a team member or a teammate, you got to let them drive. You can't grab the wheel and say, well, wait a minute, because you're going to wreck, right?
Yeah, I've been micromanaged in my marriage every day. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Thought I'd add a little humor.
You
I'm
made
in
me
a good
cough.
mood this morning. Yeah, I mean, compassionate leader. But to Bruce's point earlier too, sometimes compassionate leadership might involve micromanagement, right? It could involve a number of things. Somebody might need to be micromanaged. Now, if you get them to where they need to be, if it's an employee type relationship, then maybe you back off. Maybe the compassion is backing off. It could be a whole cycle, right? There's so many different, there's not just a one size fit all. This is not a cookie cutter, but there are so many benefits of compassionate leadership. I mean, I know we talked a little bit about servant leadership, but when you look at it from a business standpoint, people generally don't run away from compassionate leaders, right? So there's this loyalty component, and I think a lot of that goes in life. And Marcus, I'll tell you this: I think a lot of people are loyal to you because of your compassion, right?
Ooh.
Because the compassion you display to others, and I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal here. I think it's just a fact. It's what I've seen the last 3 years since we reconnected, and
Right.
that same thing applies to business. People are loyal to compassionate leaders.
Well, Bruce, Collin really just struck a chord with me there, talking about, sometimes being compassionate is getting in the weeds with somebody. And it reminds me of that quote that our dear sister Tamara Andrews says often is, to be clear is to be kind.
Mhm.
right? If we're not clear in our direction, we're not being compassionate. We're not being kind to those under us, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing. Well, there are few things worse than being feeling like it's fuzzy. Like, where do I stand? How is this going? And not that you constantly have to have affirmation of performance, but the direction, it does need to be clear. It does need to be repeated. And we're also talking about, mostly right now, we're talking about a leader and then an organization that may, I mean, that's my visual, is we're kind of talking about those that may report into a leader, et cetera. But I think everything we're talking about is linear as well. It's horizontal as well. So let's say you've got a colleague who you absolutely depend on. Maybe they're the engineer of the project, right? Or maybe they are the sales engineer that actually performs the example or demonstration of the product. And you, as a salesperson, know that you want a story woven, or you want to tell it a certain way, or you've got certain facts and
Yeah.
information that will make that presentation solid around benefit, return on investment, value, et cetera. How you approach that person who's an expert at what they do. They know every button to push. They know what report comes out. They know how everything works. The compassionate aspect there is this is where we want to get to at the end of whatever that is, the hour we have, the end of the next 6 months to win the deal. We want to make it to the next meeting. We want to make it to the cut, whatever that goal is. Those conversations of compassion, of how you help that person be the best they are, so they can perform the role you need them to do. I mean, that same thing probably even in an orchestra or a band or on
Yeah.
a team. It's how do we compassionately introduce maybe some knowledge we have or some guidance that we know, because we've been around that track once or twice, can make the outcome better, but know that you're dealing with a person, you're dealing with an ego, you're dealing with pride, you're dealing with a skill set, you're dealing with something that someone's incredibly comfortable with. We used to do this often where it was really a simple analogy. We'd say, I'd say to you, Marcus, you absolutely know how to build this watch. You know every gear, every crystal, every quartz, everything that's inside of it, every mechanism. But the guy or the gal we're going to talk to today, what we need to teach them is how to tell time. So let's focus on those things. And when we need to, we'll talk about the accuracy. We'll talk about the design. But let's make sure. And so that would be more of a compassionate leadership example that says, you're amazing at what you do. Let's try to take what you do and really make it sing here.
Yeah, that's so good. And as you're saying that, this is so cool. As you're saying that, a perfect example of that is our buddy that just popped up who says good morning family on there, the Facebook user. It's Ryan Austin. Talk about a compassionate leader in the paving industry, in the construction. I mean, I'm just going to say, I don't think I've ever seen a more compassionate leader than Ryan Austin, right?
Oh, absolutely. And just, hey, Ryan, good morning. And just a shout out to Ryan. He invited me to come and work with his company last month, and we spent a day together. His whole goal was to build a family orientation towards his business. Now, that's his mission, his goal, his passion. And we worked on some things that said, okay, how do we go about, how can we do that? He wanted to make sure folks were seen. He wanted to make sure that there was a new kind of respect for each person's skill set that they had, whether it was entry level and whatever that role was, or it was a project quotation person that knew every aspect of a job. And there are few examples like Ryan who really see that as, I want to be a compassionate and servant leader and grow, and the rest will happen. You tend the garden right, and you're going to get flowers, and you're going to get produce, and you're going to get what needs to come out of it.
Yeah, it's so good. So Collin, we have a few minutes left. We need some takeaways for the folks. So not to put you on the spot, if you have one, that's great. But what are some takeaways, Bruce and Collin, that we can offer the beautiful people out here that we dearly love? How can they incorporate what we're talking about today into their daily lives? Oh, you're muted or something. I got you. Hold on. I got you. Hold on. All right. It won't unmute. He's not connected. He's on. Bruce, let's go because he's.
That was awesome. We got all that down. We're reading your lips.
It won't unmute. Come out, come back in. So,
Well,
Bruce,
yeah,
give us a takeaway.
I think awareness is key. You know, taking a moment to understand, you know, they call it read the room or understand the environment. You know, there's a lot of factors, right? There's the factor of what you got to get done. And then there's the factor of how you go about doing that. I would say that.
Yeah, Collin, I think we can hear you now. And now he's frozen. There you go.
Okay. There's, you know, my computer. Can you?
You're in the matrix, but keep trying.
Yeah.
Keep trying. Yes, come on. Yeah, well, Bruce, I love that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Here we go. Hey, this is the comedic portion of the day. So, folks, here's the thing. Empathy is key, right, Bruce? Empathy is key. You've got to care about who you're working with and who you're leading. And you got to care about yourself. You know, if you don't care, you're not going to get anywhere. And I'm not trying to rhyme. Empathy is key.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, right. I mean, you're trying to get stuff done, and we're working with human, we're working with people, working with souls and spirits and folks that have, you know, life going on. And, you know, sometimes I learned this recently. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Oh, that's so good.
Spending time to learn when, you know, it's music, it's sports, it's whatever, but it's also in relationships, working slowly to really understand the team that you've hired, the people you've invested in, the peers that you have that you rely on to help get the job done, your family, your children, learning how, as best you can, they receive is so much more important than how articulate you are.
Yeah, man, that's so good. The other thing that is vital, right? That is vital in business is to give somebody a simple pat on the back. Acknowledgement is the biggest thing. I can remember somebody telling an old boss of mine, he just wants to be acknowledged. He just wants to be congratulated on a good job, right? So if somebody is producing and they're producing and they're producing and they're producing, and you don't say, hey, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so happy you're part of this team. Or even that small win, you know, let's say somebody's looking at a big $100,000 sale and it only comes in at $20,000 and they're upset. Man, you're almost a quarter of a way there. That's a great job. You know, we talk about failing forward. We talk about all of those things. I think we're so focused on the goal and not the target of getting across the finish line versus hitting the target somewhere and being creative, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, absolutely. Little wins repeated. You know, we talk about that one mailbox at a time to run the marathon, or whatever that is. Now, you want to accelerate, you want to accomplish more each time, each shovel, you want to have more on the, you know, more dirt when you dig out, but you got to start by learning the technique of that. So, yeah, and you know, we wrote the word compassion. I'm happy to share it as we close.
Right, let's do it. We got time. Yeah, let's go.
I know we're kind of running out of time. So remember, right? Compassion has the word compass at the beginning and passion in the end, right? That's what it is. So I wrote it, you know, guys, I write words vertically. I love sharing this stuff with you. So compassion to me is caring for others. I mean, it's got to start there. It's got to start there. And sometimes you have to be compassionate to yourself, right? So you've got to figure that out as well. The O is open-hearted. You got to come in with an open heart and an open mind. But I would say an open heart starts that. The M is you got to be moved to give. I do believe whether that's giving feedback, whether that's giving opportunity, whether that's giving grace, whatever that give is that helps build that compassion. The P is passionate about helping. I mean, we talked about that as the service aspect. I wrote this 3 years ago and boom, it's popping up to right what we're talking about today. The A is always aware. Like, let's read the room, you know, watch the room. We have two eyes and a mouth, right? Watch the room before we speak. If we can, right? Now, obviously if it's an emergency or something like that, we got to jump in. The S is seeking ways to contribute, right? I think in sales and leadership and relationships, it's what can you give first? Give before you get. Selfless in trying times, right? There's selfish and there's selfless. We can choose how we want to use that word, right? The I is inspired which is inspiring. Like servant leadership also often comes in as, I'm inspired. This is going to be hard, but we get to do hard things. Let's go. Right? You're inspired by being inspiring. The O is open-minded to situations. I've not seen this before, or I've seen something like this. What can I pull from my previous experience? How can I start navigating, but open-minded to situations? The end, then the last letter in compassion is, I just repeated, nurturing, 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 nurturing yourself, nurturing those around you, nurturing your client, whatever that is in that situation. So that's how I kind of break down compassion.
It's not kind of, you do. It's so good. I mean, we could do sessions on each one of those letters, we really could. So everybody that's watching this live, we appreciate you. We love you. Everybody listening to this on replay, watching on, as the kids say, the hashtag replay. We love you. We appreciate you. The takeaway today that we want you to think about as you're in a leadership role is evaluate yourself. Take a step back. How are you leading others? And are you being congratulatory? Are you lifting others up, or are you beating them down? And if you find that you're doing some of those negative things, don't beat yourself up about it, baby. Just correct it and take those incremental steps, as Bruce says, towards changing the way you lead others. And we promise you, you will see a difference in your team. You will go further. Like, what's your smooth and fast? Say it again, Bruce.
Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
Yeah, that's your takeaway right there, folks. So, Bruce, man, thank you so much for showing up. Collin, thank you so much for showing up. We love you. Man, go Braves. Man, they destroyed the Rangers 2 nights ago, and the Rangers came back last night and destroyed them. But, man, go Braves. Have a great day. We love you guys. We'll see you. Peggy Gossman says smiling is helpful. It is. But we thank you so much for watching and listening to Strike a Chord Live podcast. We will be back on Friday with very extremely special guest, Danny Smith Mathis, our dear sister. She's returning after a couple of years being a guest on here, and we have her coming. So thank you, Bruce. Have a great day, brother.
Take care, everybody.